the glories of Lord Chaitanya on his appearance day. Lord Chaitanya is the most magnificent and the most complete incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Actually, he is not even an incarnation himself. It is our great fortune on Gaura Purnima day to be able to speak about Lord Chaitanya. But let us first invoke the prayers and the blessings of the Acharyas and of the Lord himself before we speak. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamhayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shrishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvashe Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In the scriptures, there is tabled every incarnation of the Lord who is going to appear. This is the means by which it is possible to know who is actually incarnation of the Lord or not. Now, in the scriptures, there is reference to Krishna and his pastimes. There is reference to Sri Ramachandra and his forthcoming activities. The references to Gauranga or Lord Chaitanya, where are they? Here's an incarnation of the Lord. Everybody in Vedic culture knows about Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, Vamana, Trivikrama, Matsya, but very few seem to know about Lord Chaitanya or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is because Lord Chaitanya is known as what is called a Channa avatar, or a hidden incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Why this incarnation is so confidential and why this incarnation of the Lord is so little known is a great mystery. It's a great secret. And that is what we will be sharing today. So in the scriptures, though, even though the references are hidden, there are references. Some of the major references, starting from Srimad Bhagavatam, is a prediction that in this Kali Yuga, Krishna will personally appear with color that is not his own. He will come and he will come with his associates, he will come with his weapons, and he will come to spread the Sankirtan movement. Those who are intelligent, this verse says, will worship him using the Sankirtan movement. And here's the verse. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yajne Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. The specific phrase used is Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam. So it is Krishna, but he's appearing in a color different from Krishna. In fact, he appears in a golden color. And he comes with his associates, and he comes with his weapons. What is that weapon? The chanting of Krishna's names. In previous ages, Of course, Krishna would come with their Sudarshan Chakra, or Lord Nrsingadev comes with his nails. They have each their own individual weapons. But Lord Chaitanya, he comes with a weapon of Krishna's names. He comes not to kill the demons, he comes to kill the demoniac mentality. And the Srimad Bhagavatam says that in previous ages, people would worship the Supreme Lord according to a specific performance of sacrifice. In Dwapar Yuga, they would do this using deity worship. In Treta Yuga, they would perform elaborate sacrifices, fire yagyas. And in Satya Yuga, people would worship the Lord using meditation. But in Kali Yuga, they worship those who are intelligent, sumedasa, filled with extremely refined and capable intelligence. They discern that the best way to worship this form of the Supreme Lord is through Sankirtana. There's also a reference in the Vishnu Sahasranama of the Mahabharata. Now, the Mahabharata produces two great jewels. One of them is very well known, and that is the Bhagavad Gita. The other extremely wonderful jewel that comes from the Mahabharata is the Vishnu Sahasranama, or the 1,000 names of Vishnu. This was uttered by Bhishma when he was lying on the battlefield, covered from head to toe in arrows. Amongst the many names of Vishnu that he chants, he speaks about this appearance of Lord Chaitanya. And this was about 4,500 years prior to the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. Suvarna varna hemango varangas chandanangadi sakrit shama shanto nishta shanti parayana. Now this verse is very significant because the Vishnu Sahasranamam denotes the names of Vishnu. And this specific verse, it speaks of a golden limbed form of the Lord. Suvarna Varna. It's a golden limbed form of the Lord. Hemanga. All his limbs are completely molten golden color. Vararangas Chandanangadi. He is smeared with sandalwood paste all over his body, because this beautifies the body and cools the body from heat. Importantly, the next line says, Sannyasakrit Shama Shanta. Sannyasakrit, he takes the order of sannyas. Now, if we reflect, which incarnations of the Lord adopt the mood of renunciation? Well, there are only a few that show renunciation, like Naranarayana Rishi, for example, or Rishabdev. But here, Sannyasakrit, the other incarnations of the Lord don't officially take sannyas. Lord Chaitanya takes the renounced order, but he specifically takes sannyas. Sannyasakrit Shama Shanto Nishtha Shanti Prayana, this verse says. This is a reference to Lord Vishnu. A more direct reference is found in the Garuda Purana, where Krishna says, Aham Purno Bhavishyami Yuga Sandhau Visheshata Maya Pure Navadvipe Bhavishyami Sachisutaha. He even gives the name of his mother. He says that I will be born as a son of Sachi in the place known as Mayapur Navadvipa. And I will come at the Yuga Sandhya. I will come at the confluence of the two yugas. Usually when one yuga ends and the other begins, there is a period which is considered to be the confluence, where the influence of the previous age has not fully dissipated. The current age, its influence is progressing, but again, not fully dissipated. That confluence is supposed to last 10,000 years. And Lord Chaitanya says that in that confluence of the two yugas, Aham Purno, I will manifest my spiritual form in Mayapur Navadvipa. It is said 3 full forms of the Lord who manifest the personality completely. That is Lord Nrsingadev, Ramachandra, and Krishna himself. But then when he says, Aham Purna Bhavishyami, I'm going to manifest myself completely. Well, it's not Lord Nrsingadev, it's not Sri Ramachandra, and it's not Krishna. Krishna came in Dwapar Yuga. This is Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself. He is not just an incarnation of the Lord. He is directly Krishna. And when he comes, every other incarnation of the Lord comes with him. Again, in the Garuda Purana, there's another verse which says, Kale Pratama Sandhyayam Lakshmi Kanta Bhavishyati. At the very beginning of Kali Yuga, I will come as the husband of Lakshmi. And Lord Chaitanya's first wife was Lakshmi. So Lakshmi Kanta Bhavishyati. Dharu Brahma Samipasta. I will reside near a form of the Lord carved out of wood. And Sannyasi Gaura Vigraha. And I will adopt the sannyas order, having a form like gold. And this again is a reference to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, in the latter part of his pastimes, in the last 18 years of his life, resided in Jagannath Puri, near Lord Jagannath, and would weep tears of ecstasy, of separation from Lord Jagannath. There is no other incarnation of the Lord so specifically descending in who takes a sannyas order, who has a golden form, and who would worship Lord Jagannath. So even though Lord Chaitanya is not well known to the public, there are these references that we've read and others throughout several scriptures indicating the presence of Lord Chaitanya. But it's just the scriptures that understood the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. It was the great saints also. We've already read one reference by Bhishmadev, who had predicted the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. But also, the four acharyas of the four main Vaishnava sampradayas were also granted darshan of Lord Chaitanya. For example, when Sripad Acharya, the Prince of the Sri Sampradaya, was staying in Jagannath Puri, he was offering prayers to Lord Jagannath, who became extremely pleased with him. Lord Jagannath appeared before Ramanuja and said, "My dear Ramanuja, go to Navadvipa, for very soon I will appear there. I will appear there in the house of a Brahmana called Jagannath Mishra." Now, Sripad Ramanuja appeared now about 1,000 years ago. Chaitanya appeared about 500 and something years ago. So when Lord Chaitanya spoke this instruction to Ramanuja, very soon I will appear there, it was in about 480 odd years, I will appear in Navadvipa. He then said, you should go to Navadvipa, and this Navadvipa is the repository of every other holy dham. Your very own Sri Rangam is present there, and Tirupati is present there. It is the greatest of all my dhams. Please go there, and you will see my form as Lord Chaitanya. Folding his hand, Ramanuja very humbly requested Lord Chaitanya, "My dear Lord, you have revealed something very astonishing and very wonderful to me about Gauranga. But who is this form? How is it that I've never read about him? How is it that I don't know anything about him? Can you please instruct me?" And then Lord Jagannath said, "It is known to you that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that very same form of Krishna will manifest his pastimes as Gauranga in Navadvipa." Hearing this, Ramanuja was filled with extreme wonder, and he said, "Oh my Lord, your pastimes are truly astonishing. The scriptures cannot possibly understand you, not understand your intentions and the wonderful ways in which you operate. How is it that there's no reference to you in the scripture?" And as he said this, Ramanuja took a minute, and he thought back. And then he said to Jagannath, "I think I actually have scenes like this, but only now when you're speaking, when you from within my heart are allowing me to remember and reflect on those references, am I able to understand your form as Lord Chaitanya. If this form is the supreme form, and these teachings are the absolute conclusion, the absolute truth, let me proclaim the glories of Gauranga, and let everybody relish his mercy." Hearing this, Lord Jagannath said, "My dear Ramanuja, not yet. The time will come when Lord Chaitanya's glories, my form as Gauranga, and his glories will be broadcast throughout the world. But now is not the time." And then Ramanuja said, please, is there any way by which I can witness these pastimes? And then actually, Ramanuja went to Navadvipa and got darshan of Lord Chaitanya. His mind became stunned with ecstasy and falling completely flat at Gauranga's feet. He was trembling in ecstasy, and Gauranga put his 2 feet on Ramanuja's head. And Ramanuja said, my dear Lord, please be merciful to me. I must see your pastimes when you come and manifest them in this very same place. Please allow me this. I shall never leave this place. Lord Gauranga said, my dear servant, your wish to see my pastimes will be fulfilled. Do not be impatient. Go and perform the service that you have appeared to perform. But you will soon appear in my pastimes as a Brahmana, Ananta Vipra. And appearing there, you will see me as Nimai Pandit. You will see my pastimes as I manifested in Navadvipa. It is said, Ramanuja then began to secretly cultivate his attraction for Gauranga, whilst never once speaking these hidden glories to the rest of the world. In fact, it was not just Ramanuja. All the 4 acharyas of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas were accorded darshan by Gauranga, and he informed them of his coming presence. Because Lord Chaitanya's teachings and his pastimes are the culmination of the teachings of all the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. When Lord Gauranga appeared, he appeared to complete a reformation that had commenced with the appearance of Lord Buddha. Because when Lord Buddha appeared more than 2,000 odd years ago, the whole Vedic civilization was in a state of disarray. Everybody was using the Vedic scriptures as a means by which they could ruthlessly slaughter animals and eat their flesh. And they were saying, see, the Vedas prescribe that you can perform sacrifices like Ashwamedha and Gomedha sacrifices, and there is a regulation involved in killing animals. So it is okay to kill animals on the pretext of performing these sacrifices. They were killing animals en masse and sending them on the fast road, themselves on the fast road to hell. Buddha came and he said, forget these scriptures. First learn proper moral conduct, and then we will talk about the scriptures. Your state of consciousness is not fit to understand the scriptures. So forget the scriptures. For you, they don't exist. You first be a good person. And he said, ahimsa para dharma. For you, the supreme religion is to practice ahimsa, non-violence towards everybody. And this should be your principal practice. But the Buddhism philosophy also encapsulates the goal of becoming basically nothing. This is called Shunyavad. After Buddha, Shankaracharya came as an incarnation of Lord Shiva, and he came by the instruction of the Supreme Lord to bring those who had now started following the Buddhist path by the direction of the Lord as Lord Buddha. He came to bring them back to respecting the Vedic scriptures. And he showed them how the goals enunciated in Buddhism of nihilism and voidism were identical to the goal of merging into Brahman mentioned in the scriptures. But by showing them the goal was identical, he was able to prove to them that the Vedas are real, because by this time, Buddhists en masse had rejected the Vedic scriptures. As soon as they were brought to the path of Vedic culture, and this is actually why Buddhism was driven out of India and to China, Tibet, Bhutan, and then towards the Asian countries, because Shankaracharya's preaching just pushed it all away. But now, people still didn't recognize that Krishna or Vishnu was the principal object of worship. They thought that we want to become one with the effulgence of the Lord. The so-called Mayavad philosophy. So at that point, Ramanuja appeared, and he proved that the Supreme Lord is a person. So Shankaracharya allowed people to believe in the scriptures, and Ramanuja used those scriptures to show that Krishna was a person and one should worship Krishna. After Ramanuja, Madhvacharya came in the Madhva Sampradaya, and he emphasized that Krishna and the living entity are separate. After Madhvacharya finished his teaching, Lord Chaitanya came and established the final and original Vedic conclusion, which is, yes, everything is separate, and yes, everything is one. Everything is one and separate at the same time, just as when you have the sun shining in its full brilliance and glory, and you have the rays of the sun, you cannot say, look, I'm going to take away the heat and light of the sun, because then the sun has no meaning anymore. In that way, Krishna and his energies are one. Everything is one. You cannot distinguish between the two. You cannot draw a line which says, here are the sun's rays and here is the sun. They are one unit. In that sense, they're one. But at the same time, just because a ray of light is entering through the window into your room, it doesn't mean that the sun has entered. We say the sun has come inside the house, or the sun is shining in the house. But we don't actually mean that the sun is in the house. We mean that the sun's energies are in the house. And in this way, one can understand that there is a difference between the energetic and the energy. Establishing this philosophy, he established the eternal dependence of Prakriti and the Jiva in the Supreme Lord. And at the same time, he established how one cannot actually separate the Lord's energies from the Lord. This is the original Vedic teaching, and Lord Chaitanya came as the culmination of the teachings of the Vaishnavacharyas, all of the Vaishnavacharyas, to re-establish this fundamental Vedic truth. The principles that Lord Chaitanya took from the four sampradayas are important to understand, because each of the Vaishnava sampradayas presented the absolute truth. And Lord Chaitanya, this hidden incarnation of the Lord, coming at the end of so many Vaishnavacharyas to re-establish the Vedic truth, was bringing together the conclusions of all these Vaishnavacharyas. So from the Sri Sampradaya, he took the concept of pure devotional service, and he took service to the Vaishnavas. From the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, he took the mood of complete dependence upon Krishna, and he took the path of spontaneous devotional service. From Nimbarkacharya, he took the need to take shelter of Srimati Radharani exclusively, and the exalted mood of the gopis' love for Krishna. From the Madhava Sampradaya, he took the complete rejection of the Mayavad philosophy and the worship of the deity of Krishna, understanding the form of Krishna to be eternal. So 2 from each of the Vaishnava Sampradayas, in total 8 teachings. He brought it together and presented the purest form of Vaishnava philosophy. This is one reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance, but it is not the only one. There is a hidden secret in the scriptures that describes why Lord Chaitanya appeared. And this is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela chapter 1, text number 6, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Van Yeva Svadhyo Yenadbhuta Madhurima Kidrisho Va Madhiya Saukyam Chasya Mad Anubhavata Kidrishim Veti Lobhat Tad Bhavadhya Samajani Sachi Garbha Sindhu Harindu. He says that Lord Chaitanya came to desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love. 3 reasons. The glory of Radharani's love. Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima. Number 2, the wonderful qualities in him, Krishna himself, that she alone relishes through her love. And number 3, as she's relishing these qualities, the extreme happiness she feels in realizing the sweetness of his love. Now one may ask, What is this? This seems very esoteric. But here is the history behind this confidential detail. Krishna was observing Srimati Radharani, and he was thinking, I am the Supreme Lord. I am not only the Supreme Lord, I am the original form of the Supreme Lord. I am the origin of Vishnu, of Rama, of Nrsimha. And there should be nobody who experiences happiness like me. But here is my topmost devotee, Srimati Radharani. And she's experiencing a happiness that is superior even to myself. How is this possible? And I am the Supreme Lord. I know everything. But this is something I actually don't understand. Desiring to understand the nature of Radharani's love, desiring to understand how exalted her love was, and how her love was capable of bringing out the very highest of qualities in himself, Krishna himself, and desiring to understand the happiness that Radharani felt in experiencing the sweetness of Krishna's love towards her. He took the form of Srimati Radharani. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam. He's Krishna himself, but he has a form, he has a color which is unlike Krishna's. What this means is that he takes on the color of Radharani's form, and he takes her very mood, tad bhavadbhya. He takes her emotions, he takes her feelings for him, and he is Krishna, but he appears with the complexion and with the mood of Srimati Radharani. This is the actual internal reason. This is Krishna's personal reason for wanting to come as Lord Chaitanya. It is extremely confidential and not known by practically anybody. Even the scriptures themselves don't know this particular reason. But Lord Chaitanya also came for the benefit of the living entities. He has come to establish the highest and original philosophy, but he has also come to give them something that nobody has ever given before. And this is expressed in the fourth verse of Adi Lila in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anarpita charim chirat karunayava tirna kalo samarpayitum unnatojvala rasam svabhakti shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Sadharidaya Kandare Spuratava Sachinandana. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, my dear brothers, please capture Lord Chaitanya in the innermost recesses of your heart and keep him there constantly. This form of the Lord who is Hari, but who has taken the effulgence of a kadamba flower, which is golden in color. He has come to give something, anarpita charim. He has come to give something which for a very, very, very long time has not been given before. And this is because of his extraordinary kindness. Karunayava tirana kalo. There's nobody who is as merciful as Lord Chaitanya. Why? Because samarpayitum unnato ujjvala rasam svabhakti shriyam. He has come to give the glory of his own devotional service. He has come to give pure devotional service. But the other Vaishnavacharyas also have given pure devotional service. What is this about the devotional service that Lord Chaitanya has given? Well, Lord Chaitanya, being Krishna himself and coming to taste the glory of Radharani's love, he has come to give us a taste for what it is like for the residents of Vrindavan to love Krishna, to give us a glimpse of the love of the residents of Vrindavan, which is superior to any other kind of love, which is capable of binding Krishna. In every other place, Krishna is the master. In Vrindavan, Krishna is not the master. He becomes completely controlled and bound by the love of his devotees. The sweetness and glory of Vrindavan Lord Chaitanya came to reveal. But not just that, coming in the mood of Srimati Radharani, he came to give living entities an opportunity to enter into his conjugal pastimes as the servant of the servant of the servant of Srimati Radharani. He came to give devotees the opportunity to join his pastimes as a gopi, which is the highest kind of love, unnata ujjvala rasam, which has never ever been given before. And this is why Lord Krishna himself had to come. It was not sufficient for Vishnu to appear or Sri Ramachandra to appear. They do not give this type of love. Krishna, in the mood of Srimati Radharani, with the compassion of Srimati Radharani, comes to taste this love and to distribute that very same love to everybody in general. It is said that when Lord Chaitanya would dance through the streets of Mayapur, simply by observing him, people would develop extreme ecstasy, and they would develop the highest levels of love of God, which is unheard of. There is no other incarnation of the Lord who, by their very presence, by their very sight, inspired ecstasy and prema. Krishna was there on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. There were so many people there on the battlefield. How many of them developed love for him? Love for him at the highest of levels? Practically nobody. But all of them, when they died under Krishna's supervision, Bhagavatam says, they were all liberated. But who gave personal devotional service to living entities just by their very darshan? And that was Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya would spin and dance and chant in great ecstasy, the devotees would develop love for him. By hearing his calling out to Krishna, 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 with deep separation, every resident of wherever he was would hear that and develop love for Krishna. And when those hearers would chant Krishna's names, their chanting would inspire love in yet others. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, in this way, hundreds of Vaishnava Sampradayas were born. Because one developing prema would chant, and then another person would chant, and then another person would hear the second person and chant, and on it would go. And all of them would develop prema bhakti. This was Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya came, yes, to reestablish the original teachings of the Vedas. But he came really personally to taste the love of Srimati Radharani, and he came to distribute this love to the living entities in general. And this is the exalted mercy of Lord Chaitanya. In fact, one of Lord Chaitanya's principal students, Srila Rupa Goswami, he has composed this verse that we recite. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Lord Krishna, who comes in a form that is not like Krishna's, that is a form that is molten gold in color. He is the most magnificent form of the Lord. By his very presence, by his chanting, by everything he does, he gives love for himself freely, without consideration. Actually, the analogy that is given is just like sometimes when somebody is drunk, you don't know whom you give. You even give valuable things just like this to anybody. In that way, Lord Chaitanya being drunk in love of God. Anybody and everybody, whoever was willing to take it, just take this. You don't want to take it, please take it. He would just distribute love of God in that way. Namo Mahavadanyaya. There's nobody more merciful than Lord Chaitanya. Now, this hidden incarnation of the Lord is worshipped on this particular day as Gauranga. And because he comes to distribute love for Krishna, he appears only once in the day of Brahma. Now, generally speaking, the other incarnations of the Lord, such as Nrsimha, Rama, Varaha, they appear at least once in a single yuga, so to speak, like in a yuga cycle. But Lord Chaitanya Krishna appears once in one day of Brahma, which has 1,000 yuga cycles. And Lord Chaitanya comes when Krishna, the original form of the Lord, as Krishna himself, when Krishna appears, Lord Chaitanya also appears. Our fortune in being present merely 512 or 520 odd years after Lord Chaitanya first appeared in this world is extraordinary, because we have been given the opportunity to have the highest thing by just great fortune. When we speak about Lord Chaitanya breaking open the storehouse of love of God and just madly, like a drunken person, distributing it everywhere and giving the highest of the things to the lowest of people, it is important to understand what this means. See, in the first age, in the golden age of Satya Yuga, people were so extraordinarily pious that everything they did was to purify their heart. They never did anything for personal enjoyment. They did it, and they experienced happiness just in the process of purifying their heart. And generally speaking, many of these individuals achieved liberation, either in personal, or if they were so fortunate, personal liberation also. Go to the next age, which is considered to be the silver age of Treta Yuga. Here, people just started to think that, okay, I will perform my religious duties, I will worship the Lord, but maybe there's a little bit of pleasure in taking something a little bit for myself. Wasn't prominent, but it was a little bit there. In the next stage, which is known as the Bronze Age, so we started with gold, then we went to silver, now we've gone to bronze. In the Bronze Age, people started to feel like, well, if there's, at the very end, actually, of the Bronze Age, they started to feel, well, even if there's a little bit of sinful activity, I think we can be happy with that. In the previous two ages, forget sinful activity. Without religious duties, they didn't think they could be happy. In fact, they couldn't experience happiness. That was their feeling. In Dwapar Yuga, at the very end, they started to feel like sinful activity could be pleasurable. In Kali Yuga, the situation is so bad that forget pious activities or religious activities. People wonder how you can be happy if you practice pious or religious activities. Sinful activities like drinking or gambling, intoxication, and free association with the opposite sex or with the same sex is considered to be the root for happiness. And if you tell somebody, I don't drink, I don't eat meat, I don't freely mingle, they wonder, what do you do with yourself? How do you spend your time? Do you have fun? These are the kind of comments people have now. So when we say that Lord Chaitanya is giving the highest thing to the lowest of people, what we're saying is that Lord Chaitanya is giving something that was not even present, not even given to the highest of qualified people in Satyuga, to the lowest of the low in Kali Yuga. Before Lord Chaitanya's appearance, of course, came a great saint called Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was a sannyasi in the Madhava Sampradaya. So, of course, there are four Vaishnava Sampradayas. You have the Rudra Sampradaya, then you have the Nimbarka Sampradaya, or the four Kumara Sampradaya. You have the Sri Sampradaya, and then you have the Brahma Madhava Sampradaya. So, in the Madhava Sampradaya, there was a sannyasi known as Madhavendra Puri. Now, generally speaking, in the Madhava line, there was worship of Narayan, and Madhavendra Puri also worshipped Krishna, who was famous as Udupi Krishna. But Radha and Krishna were never worshipped. It was Madhavendra Puri who showed the world, which was previously not really displayed, but he started to demonstrate this worship of Radha and Krishna. Madhavendra Puri is called the seed of the tree of Lord Chaitanya. He was that first link which commenced our special manner of worshipping Krishna. Madhavendra Puri was approached. So Madhavendra Puri was in Udupi one time, and Advaita Acharya, who was in Navadvip, he was a young boy at the time, and he just was wandering through India. He came to Udupi, and in Advaita Acharya's mind, there was this one question: how will the people of Kali Yuga be delivered? He was seeing suffering everywhere. He was seeing that people were forgetting Krishna, and he was seeing that people were suffering as a result. And he asked Madhavendra Puri this question: my dear sir, you are decorated with so many auspicious qualities. Can you please help me understand how will living entities here be delivered? And Madhavendra Puri told him something very confidential. Seeing Advaita Acharya was so supremely qualified, understanding his position actually as Mahavishnu himself, Mahavishnu and Sadashiva combined actually, he whispered to him the secret about Lord Chaitanya's appearance. Because the great devotees, to them, Krishna's pastimes are revealed within their heart. So Madhavendra Puri revealed the appearance of Lord Chaitanya and his mission to Advaita Acharya at that time, when Advaita Acharya was still a very young man. Advaita Acharya became wild with ecstasy, running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He began to sing a verse. He began to say, Gaura mora prana pate yanhata nepana Veda dharma langi mui taha chaliyana. And this verse is actually really special. Advaita Acharya said, even though I'm a Brahmana, even though I've been trained in all the scriptures, I have never heard of such mercy as this. I've never heard of somebody so wonderful that they themselves taste love of God to such a high degree and then just give it freely to so many other people. This Lord Chaitanya will be the complete, this is whom I've been waiting for my whole life. And then he said, Gaura Mora Pranapati, he is the master of my life. Gaura Mora Pranapati Yanha Tarepana. Wherever he is found, I will be looking for him. I will go to him. And Veda Dharma Langi Muvi, all the religion of the Vedas, you have to perform this sacrifice, you perform this penance, you perform this austerity. Forget it all. None of this is relevant anymore. I will follow what Lord Chaitanya has said. And Advaita Acharya then prepared his life for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. And in fact, it was Advaita Acharya's call when he saw the living entities continue to suffer. And he was feeling, look, I really need you, Lord. Please come. And by this time, he was an elderly man. He said, my dear Lord, I've been waiting for you my whole life. Please come. And it was his loud calls that pierced through the coverings of the material world and entered Krishna's ears that caused Krishna's descent into this world. Krishna was planning to come anyway, but he came also specifically in response to Advaita Acharya's prayers. So this is the secret of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. He came as the hidden incarnation, hardly known in the Vedas, known only to the greatest and most confidential of his associates, including the acharyas of the four sampradayas, who were all present in Navadvip when he was manifesting his pastimes, coming to reveal the highest kind of love for himself, for Krishna, in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and wanting to distribute that love to living entities in general. He appeared about 512 or 20 years ago and freely broke open the treasure of love of God to distribute that love to everybody. It is important to understand what the essence of Lord Chaitanya's teachings were or are. Lord Chaitanya, he has summarized his teachings in chapter 20 of the Antya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The chapter is called the Shikshashtaka prayers. These prayers are considered to be the final teachings of Lord Chaitanya. The Shikshashtaka prayers were composed by Lord Chaitanya himself. Towards the very end of his pastimes in this world, he would be with his very confidential associates and specifically relish the love of Srimati Radharani. He had already distributed love of God to everybody. That part of his pastimes was completed. For the first 24, Lord Chaitanya was manifested his pastimes for about 48 years. Lord Chaitanya, for the first 24 of those years, manifested his pastimes as a grihastha, or as a student. As a student, he was the best of all scholars. And then at some point, he manifested his mood as a devotee and then as a Supreme Lord. He organized Sankirtan amongst the devotees in the Navadvip area. He then took sannyas at the age of 24 to deliver the rest of the world, who were not really considering him to be important because he was a grihastha. He took sannyas just for their benefit, leaving aside his devoted wife and mother just for the benefit of all living entities. Then for the remainder of the 24 years, he was a sannyasi. For 6 of those last 24 years, he traveled throughout India, particularly South India, and met many devotees and liberally distributed mercy there. But for the last 18 years of his manifested pastimes, he specifically manifested an internal mood of devotion, of the internal mood of Srimati Radharani, and he came to taste and relish that kind of love. When he came, he, with 2 of his most confidential associates, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Sri Ramananda Rai, he would be relishing and tasting the verses describing Radha and Krishna's love, or verses that would describe the sweetness of Krishna's form and Krishna's qualities in just the innermost recesses of his quarters at Gambhira. And the 2 associates who were most often with him, who were capable of completely understanding his mood, were Sri Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar Goswami. They practically never left his side. In Krishna's pastimes, Ramananda Rai is Vishaka, Swarup Damodar Goswami is Lalita. They are Srimati Radharani's closest confidants and associates. When Srimati Radharani misses Krishna, Lalita and Vishaka, they are always with her, and they remind her of Krishna. They remind her, please don't feel despair. We will remind you of Krishna by singing of his qualities and singing of his glories. And in this way, Radharani maintains her life. This was Lord Chaitanya's mood in those final 18 years. And in those 18 years, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Rai continuously poured the nectar of Krishna's pastimes and verses describing Krishna's qualities and beauty into Lord Chaitanya's ears. During the day, Lord Chaitanya would take darshan of Lord Jagannath. And at night time, when he could not take darshan of Lord Jagannath, he would feel great despair. Where is my Lord, he would say. Where is my Prannath? I'm not able to see him. I cannot tolerate this. And practically dying from separation, it would require, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Rai would just recite these verses to practically keep him alive. And he would say, this is like nectar. He was like a dying man, just taking that water in great gulps just to quench his thirst. The intensity of his desire to hear about Krishna was so great. And throughout the night, Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar Goswami would sing these verses by the great devotees, Bilba Mangal Thakur, Chandidas, and other devotees. During the day, he would take darshan of Lord Jagannath, and the place where he would stand, his tears would fall like rivers. And there's a part in Jagannath Puri where there is a cavity in the stone in front of Lord Jagannath's temple. This is where Lord Chaitanya stood and cried tears and rivers of love. And it's created a cavity in that stone there. And at nighttime, he would be relishing these prayers practically to stay alive in his separation from Krishna. And amongst those prayers One of the prayers he would recite was of his own composition. And these prayers are in the form of 8 verses known as the Shikshashtaka. The Shikshashtaka is the subject of the 20th chapter of the Antya Lila, the last chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it presents the final conclusions of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Every devotee who wishes to understand Lord Chaitanya's mood and his teachings should very carefully read, study, and memorize these verses. So, Lord Chaitanya was used to say, "My dear Swarup Damodar Goswami, my dear Ramananda Rai, know from me that chanting Krishna's names is the only process of deliverance in this age of Kali. Every habit that one wants to purify, or every quality that one wants to obtain, every auspiciousness comes by the chanting of Krishna's names." And then he said, the first verse of the Shikshashtaka, Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadhavagni nirvapanam Shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidya vadu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamrita swadanam Sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam. Let there be all victory for the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, which can cleanse the mirror of the heart and stop the blazing fire of material existence. That chanting is the waxing moon, the growing moon, which brings out one's eternal identity as an eternal servant of Krishna. It is the life of all education. This chanting of Krishna's name, it expands the ecstasy of transcendental life. It is a cooling moon to everybody, and it step by step allows one to taste the nectar for which we are truly anxious. Then, as he was reciting this verse, great humility and lamentation awoke within Lord Chaitanya, and he was thinking, I'm saying this, but I am not chanting Krishna's names enough. And then he said, Nam namakari bahuda nija sarva shaktis tatrarpita niyamita smarane nakala etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durudhaiva midrashamiha janinanuraga. He said, my dear Lord, in your name there's all your potencies manifested. You have hundreds and thousands and countless names like Krishna and Govinda. In these names, you've invested all your potencies, and there's no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. They can chant them anywhere, in the bathroom, while working, in any condition of life. But my dear Lord, although you have bestowed such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls, it is my great misfortune that I do not have any taste for chanting your names. I commit offenses after offenses against your devotees, against the names, and have no taste for chanting these names. And then Lord Chaitanya continued, feeling ecstasy, rising ecstasy, he said, O Swarup Damodar Goswami, O Ramananda Rai, please hear of the symptoms of how one should chant Hare Krishna. And this verse uttered by Lord Chaitanya is considered to be our Siddha Pranali mantra. It is the mantra that acharyas recommend, that we tie on a string and tie it around our neck and keep reciting it day in, day out. Remember it, worship this verse, and apply this verse. Trinadapi suni chenha taroriva sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sada hari. And he said, one should chant the holy name of Krishna thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be always ready to offer respects to others. If one chants in this consciousness, one can take the chanting of Krishna's names constantly, and one should be trying to chant Krishna's names constantly. And as he spoke in this way, his humility increased further, and he began to pray to Krishna, his ecstasy rising more and more, swelling like an ocean. He began to pray, My dear Krishna, there is no one like you. Please allow me to render devotional service. Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktera haitu kitvai. He said, I do not want wealth. I do not want followers. I do not want beautiful women. I only want your closest devotional service. I do not even want liberation because I want this service birth after birth after birth. Then, feeling himself very fallen and feeling like a conditioned soul, because the nature of prema is humility. Sanatana Goswami says, prema and humility are identical. Where there is deep feelings of humility, prema is very, very natural. To the extent that one has love of God, to the extent one feels more and more fallen and more in need of Krishna's mercy. And in that condition, he said, Einanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddha kripaya tava pada pankaja stita duli sadrasam vichintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda, I'm your eternal servant. Please pick me up from where I am in this ditch of material existence. And please place me as an atom at your lotus feet. Then, eagerness arising in his heart, desiring deeply to chant Krishna's names in ecstatic love, he said, O my Lord, Nayanam galada shudharaya, Vadanam gat kadarudaya gira, Pulakir nichitam vapur kada, Tavanam grahane bhavishyati. My dear Lord, when will that day come when from my heart of hearts tears will come pouring out of my eyes like many torrents of rain when I chant your holy names? When will my voice choke up? When will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your names? And then, feeling deep separation from Krishna, he began to say, Yugayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravrashayitam Shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. And as he was speaking this, he was speaking like a crazy man. Krishna, he was feeling such separation from Krishna. And he said, Oh my Lord Govinda, feeling separation from you, a moment feels like a big yuga stretched out for eternity. I can't take this separation from you. Tears are pouring from our eyes like torrents on the rain, and nothing in the world has any meaning or makes any sense anymore. Then, developing the mood of Srimati Radharani, he began to recite the final verse. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddha. Sorry. Ashlishya vapadaratam pinashtumam adarshanan marmahatam karotuva. Yata tatava vidadatu lampato mat prananatastu saeva naparaha. He said, my dear Lord, I am your maidservant and I'm a surrendered soul. You can come before me if you wish in this separation, or you may not come, but I am your eternal servant eternally, and I have nothing to do but be a servant. These 8 verses speak of chanting of Krishna's names right from the very beginning to the end and beyond of devotional service. By chanting Krishna's names, every perfection of devotional service is manifest. And this is the essence of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. By chanting Krishna's names, right from where we are with small faith up to Prema Bhakti, this is completely manifest. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak about Lord Chaitanya. Our time is up. We will now have Gaura Arti. But I thank you so much for your time. Hare Krishna.